brand new Nintendo Direct, Nintendo has revealed a brand new top-down Zelda game called Echoes of Wisdom, reusing the art style of 2019's Link's Awakening remake, and which, for the first time in the series, will have Zelda as the playable character, while Link is the one in need of saving. The trailer begins with a shot of a group of Darknuts gathered near a gate within an unknown dungeon. Right from the get-go, we can tell that these are different from the ones we saw in Link's Awakening, wielding large battle axes instead of the sword, shield and spears from Link's Awakening. As the hooded figure rushes into action, with sword and Highland shield in hand, he quickly dispatches his foes with a swift spin attack. We next see Princess Zelda trapped within a purple crystal, much like the one from Ocarina of Time, with Ganon standing between her and the hooded figure. Ganon's cape has a unique pattern on it, showcasing a stylized depiction of the Demon King himself, with a jewel on the top, the eyes and snout, and of course, two large tusks on each side. We are then shown a shot of the hooded figure, who quickly removes his blue hood, revealing himself to be Link, the same Link from Link's Awakening, wielding a never-before-seen blue sword. This sword, surprisingly, bears a strong resemblance to the fuse ability icon from Tears of the Kingdom. Could this be hinting at a potential Sonic connection? This reveal of Link wearing a hood is very reminiscent to the initial Breath of the Wild reveal trailer, where Link, also wearing a hood, removed it before confronting his foe, perhaps this signaling the next evolution of 2D Zelda games. Following this is gameplay footage of Link fighting against the Demon King Ganon, and while this may look like the final fight of a Zelda game, in actuality, this will be the start of the game. Judging by the initial portion of the trailer where we saw Link fighting against Darknuts, it is possible we will fight our way through a dungeon of swords as we make our way towards Ganon and Zelda. This is where things get interesting, as if we take a closer look at Ganon's trident, we will soon notice that it is double-sided. This trident is identical to the one used by the Shadow Nightmare when it took the form of Ganon during the final fight of Link's Awakening. If we look at the other tridents of Ganon in the series, each of them are one-sided and different from the one shown in both Link's Awakening and Echoes of Wisdom. To me, this makes it clear that this game is not only a sequel to A Link to the Past, but also a prequel to Link's Awakening, as the Shadow Nightmare manifested itself as Link's own fears, such as Aghanim from A Link to the Past, and now this newest iteration of Ganon. After a match of Deathman's Volley against Ganon, Link deals the final strike to the Demon King, who explodes in a cloud of violet smoke. However, as Link approaches Zelda to set her free from her crystal prison, the double-edged trident, left behind by Ganon upon his defeat, begins to emanate a purple mist, as a strange rift forms from its center, quickly growing and engulfing our green-clad hero. In a last-ditch effort to save the princess, Link shoots an arrow at the crystal, using a bow of the same blue spiral design as the sword he wielded, before completely being submerged in the void rift. Both the sword and bow also share the spiral design of Link's hood, which has the same blue tint for its patterns as the two previously mentioned weapons. As Zelda's crystal cracks and she's set free, the void rift continues to grow in size, prompting Zelda to quickly escape from this underground dungeon lest she suffer the same fate as Link. As Zelda makes it outside and trips, the rift appears to halt its approach. We are then met with a shot of the wide landscape of Hyrule Kingdom, reminiscent of the first view of Hyrule upon leaving the Shrine of Resurrection in Breath of the Wild, as we are revealed to the title of the game, The Legend of Zelda: Echoes of Wisdom, adorned with a scepter we will explore later in the trailer. From this shot alone, we can immediately see quite a few familiar landmarks, as this rendition of Hyrule appears to be modeled after the one seen in A Link to the Past. Hyrule Castle is seen in the center, with the same bordering murals as those from A Link to the Past and A Link Between Worlds. Given the position of the castle, we are immediately met with other familiar landmarks, such as Lake Hylia and the Pond of Happiness, where the Great Fairy Venus was found in A Link to the Past, and the island which by the time of A Link Between Worlds would become the House of Gales, one of the dungeons housing one of the 3 pendants of virtue. To the east of Hyrule Castle, we can see a plain field with large boulders, just like the one seen in A Link to the Past, and further to the east, we catch a glimpse of the familiar first dungeon of both A Link to the Past and A Link Between Worlds, the Eastern Palace, decorated with the same statues as in the last 2 games. South of the castle, we see a stone pillar belonging to the ruins found within the Great Swamp. But something you'll quickly notice is that on the hill between the Great Swamp and Hyrule Castle, Link's house, present in both A Link to the Past and A Link Between Worlds, is nowhere to be found. Most interestingly, however, is the 2 mountains in the distance. First, we have a volcanic mountain to the west of Hyrule, likely being this game's depiction of Death Mountain, which appears to have a cave entrance or perhaps even a dungeon on the side of the wall. But what's most strange is that in the location where Death Mountain is supposed to be according to the maps of A Link to the Past and A Link Between Worlds, instead we find a snow-covered mountain. This mountain is none other than Mount Hebra. Now, there's a clarification that must be made to explain this. Back in A Link to the Past, the mountain we call Death Mountain was actually named Mount Hebra, with the Dark World counterpart actually being the one called Death Mountain. During the development of Ocarina of Time, while it was originally going to be called Death Mountain and Mount Hebra, the name Death Mountain remained, and was kept for this mountain for the following games. It is with the release of A Link Between Worlds where the name Mount Hebra made its return, and they turned the left half of the mountain, split in 2 like its original version in A Link to the Past, into a volcano. With Breath of the Wild, Mount Hebra and Death Mountain were both separated into their own respective mountains, with Hebra contrasting the volcanic region of Death Mountain, becoming a snow-covered mountain, likely due to the existence of Snow Peak in Twilight Princess, which would now retroactively be known as Mount Hebra, the only issue being the vast distance between Hebra and Sora's domain, causing narrative problems when contrasting it to Twilight Princess's narrative with Snow Peak, the Rickfish and the Yetis. Which brings us to Echoes of Wisdom, where it seems they maintain the left side of the mountain of A Link Between Worlds as a volcano, and the right side as a snow-covered mountain, much like Death Mountain's Laurelian counterpart, and much like Breath of the Wild, split them into their own separate mountains, inverting the locations of the mountains compared to how they were in Breath of the Wild. However, if compared to Twilight Princess, this would actually fix that narrative issue mentioned earlier, due to its proximity to Sora's domain. The announcement trailer then fades to show Eiji Aonuma, producer of the Legend of Zelda series, as he presents Echoes of Wisdom. We can see that Aonuma is wearing a shirt with a Zelda design on it, saying Hyrule Fantasy on top, and Power, Wisdom, and Courage at the bottom, with A Link to the Past sprites dotted below, including that of Link from A Link to the Past, fallen face first. I have looked everywhere for this t-shirt, but it seems that this t-shirt is one that is brand new, as the only one closely matching this design is this one themed around the NES title. Could this t-shirt be further indication of this title's connection to A Link to the Past, and the defeated Link symbolizing this Link's capture, leading to Zelda becoming the playable character? Aonuma explains that, unlike Link who fights with a sword, Zelda will have her own unique playstyle, explained later in detail. As a continuation of the shot previously discussed, we see two Hylian knights running to the aid of Princess Zelda, their design being very reminiscent to those seen in the era of the Wild games, unlike the soldiers from A Link to the Past. Following this, a narrating voice explains the setting of the game.
Stolen away. Across the vast lands of Hyrule, strange rifts have appeared and have taken many people, including Link. Now alone, Zelda meets the fairy Tri, receives a mysterious staff called the Tri-Rod, and sets off on a journey across Hyrule to save her kingdom.
We see a shot of a small plaza surrounded by stone brick walls, at the center of which is a fountain decorated with the crest of the royal family, like those seen in Twilight Princess and Breath of the Wild's castle towns. This is undoubtedly within the courtyard of Hyrule Castle, with this rendition being much more detailed than the one seen in both A Link to the Past and A Link Between Worlds. Off to the distance, blurred, we can actually spot a weather vane like the ones from A Link to the Past and A Link Between Worlds, but this one, unlike its red counterparts, is purple, being closer in appearance to those seen in Lore. An interesting note brought to me by my friend Lorune Historian is that in the Japanese version of the trailer, when the text appears and says stolen away, the term used in Japanese is kamigakushi, meaning spirited away. This, of course, is the same exact terminology as the Japanese name for the Studio Ghibli animated movie Spirited Away. It seems that, in a similar fashion to how both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom were inspired by Princess Mononoke and Castle in the Sky, two movies by Studio Ghibli, this game, too, will be inspired by another Studio Ghibli classic. The next shot shows another of these strange rifts in a riverside with stony cliffs. At the top right corner, we can see two huts, one of which having a bag-like icon likely denoting it is some sort of shop. As it will become clearer later on, this is Sora's River, on the path leading towards Sora's domain. Within a prison cell, likely the same one Zelda was imprisoned by Aghanim back in A Link to the Past in the dungeons of Hyrule Castle, Zelda encounters a strange fairy-like creature by the name of Tri, who gives Zelda a staff called the Tri-Rod. Not much is known about this strange fairy, but given the three triangles behind it, its name being Tri, and the fact it created the Tri-Rod, its connection to the Triforce is undeniable. This brings to mind the essence of the Triforce that spoke to Link during A Link to the Past, or as it's known in Japanese, the spirit of the Triforce, a voice emanating from the Triforce that spoke to whomever laid their hands upon the sacred relic. Could this strange creature, much like Fi was the spirit of the Master Sword who was able to take on physical form, be this spirit of the Triforce mentioned all the way back in A Link to the Past? Interestingly, Tri's Japanese name is Tori, differing from Triforce, instead deriving from the Japanese word for bird, Tori. With Tri as Zelda's new companion, much like Fi was for Link, and wearing the same hood that Link was last seen wearing at the start of the game, Zelda, wielding the Tri-Rod, embarks on a journey to save her kingdom. We then see how the Tri-Rod actually works. By waving the Tri-Rod towards any object, Zelda can create a copy of it called an echo, which appears on the top right corner's UI assigned to the Y button. By pressing the Y button, Zelda can place this echo anywhere she wants, similar to the King of Birna from A Link to the Past, at the expense of one of Tri's triangles floating behind them. If we look closer at the UI icon, we can see a triangle at the top of it. This signifies the number of triangles that will be consumed when placing an echo. As we will see later, other objects will consume 2 or even 3 triangles. Back in the shot where we saw Lake Hylia, there was a strange stone at the entrance of the Wishing Well Cavern, which we again see here in this shot. The difference, however, is that while in the shot of Lake Hylia it was inactive, in this shot we see it glowing yellow, and we can even see an icon on the minimap denoting its importance. Could this stone be some sort of teleportation rock? One that Princess Zelda must first activate using the Tri-Rod. This sort of stone can be seen on important landmarks across Hyrule, such as outside of Gerudo Town, so it seems quite likely that this could be a teleportation rock. The patterns seen on these rocks, consisting of dots and horizontal and vertical lines, can be seen on more than one occasion in different places across Hyrule, such as on the walls and floor of the dungeon at the start of the game, or on the stones behind the crystallized Princess Zelda. Could this be a new form of writing system akin to the Sheikah script or Sonai script? This shot, although unclear, appears to be of a town, very likely to be Kakariko Village, unless this iteration of Hyrule introduces brand new towns to explore outside of Kakariko Village. What follows is a shot of a warped world of floating blocky islands, a world we caught a glimpse of within the rifts spread across Hyrule. This, much like the dynamic of Light and Dark World in A Link to the Past and A Link Between Worlds, appears to be a separate dimension to that of Hyrule, a warped reality consisting of broken terrain. This particular section of the map appears to be close to Sora's domain, as shown by the scale-like rock formations on the walls. As Zelda utilizes the Tri-Rod to create a column of physics-defying water, she runs past a wall with a bombable cave entrance. This suggests that at some point, Zelda will gain a bomb power, or rather, an echo with the ability to explode. As Zelda swims at the water pillar, as well as later in this underwater shot, we can see a blue oxygen meter appearing beside her, resembling the Breath of the Wild stamina UI wheel, only in blue color. The last time an oxygen meter was seen in a Zelda game was back in Skyward Sword, where it utilized the stamina meter, only changing its green color to blue. Perhaps this game, much like Skyward Sword, will include a stamina wheel too, changing the blue coloration of the circular meter back to the green color when on land, likely appearing when climbing the stony surfaces seen later in the trailer. This next shot shows a cavern with wind traps that Zelda must skillfully maneuver around by utilizing various echo. This brings to mind the Wind Temple from Phantom Hourglass, which had similar wind puzzles. Judging by the sand on the ground, this appears to be within the Gerudo Desert, or if they go with the name from A Link to the Past, the Desert of Mystery. Could this cavernous area be a dungeon? In this same shot, we see them open up a menu, much like the material one from Tears of the Kingdom, where there are a multitude of mundane objects to be used as echo, sorted by last used. By pressing the Y button, Zelda will be able to sort these in a multitude of ways, perhaps by type, cost, and so on. By pressing the plus button, Zelda would appear to have access to a notebook which may have information regarding each item and its potential uses. Next, we find ourselves on the desert surface, as Zelda uses beds and a trampoline to scale her way within a Gerudo settlement, likely being Gerudo Town, as it closely looks like the Gerudo Town from Breath of the Wild, where we can see a lone Gerudo woman standing beside a building, marking the Gerudo's second appearance in a top-down Zelda game, the first being Four Swords Adventures. This iteration of the Gerudo, unlike those from the Wild era, has the round ears characteristic from those of the era of Ocarina of Time, tying this game even closer to the older timeline. We then see the first enemy of many from this trailer, a red moblin, wielding a large machete, which Zelda swiftly defeats with the use of rock echoes, in the rock field from A Link to the Past, east of Hyrule Castle. Upon its defeat, the moblin leaves behind a miniature version of itself, which Zelda can inspect to learn the echo of the moblin, costing 2 triangles instead of the 1 like most other objects. These monster echoes, when summoned, will fight by your side and attack other monsters, like how these moblins attack these souls returning from Link's Awakening. However, judging by the yellow glow of the moblins upon being summoned, it seems that they are only temporary summons and will despawn after a certain amount of time. Another monster echo we see in a riverside shot is a chaser, an enemy only seen in the Oracle games 4 Swords and the Minish Cap, which may, like other enemies we will see, have a stronger blue variant that may cost more than 1 triangle. Zelda can mount the chasers to ride them as they chase enemies, in a similar fashion to the spinner from Twilight Princess, as we see her charge towards another enemy, the Sand Crabs, an enemy firstly introduced in A Link to the Past, this time having red pincers instead of the traditional green, likely due to this being the weak variant, with a stronger blue sand crab perhaps being in the game as well. And sneakily found on the right side near the end of the shot is a sea urchin, an enemy firstly seen during Link's Awakening in Torombo Shores. On this next shot of a side-scrolling underwater section, we see 2 familiar underwater enemies from past Zelda titles. First, returning from Link's Awakening is the Angler Fry, which Zelda summons at the cost of 2 triangles, which she uses to fight against a bombfish, an enemy from Twilight Princess, making its first appearance in a top-down Zelda game. We then see a shot of a canyon-like area, likely this section from A Link to the Past Hyrule, reimagined as a canyon, as 3 crows circle around a plant. Zelda summons a meat echo, going back to the classic NES Zelda where, like here, it was used as bait for enemies. As the crows are eating the meat, Zelda summons a yellow Deku Baba, which eats 2 of the crows in 1 bite, as the last one flies off in fear. The next shot we see is of Zelda and Tri escaping from a wall of rift, and judging by the environment, this appears to be in the catacombs where Zelda was imprisoned earlier. It seems that after Zelda escapes from her prison cell, her and Tri would explore a bit and learn the echoes of tables, broken beds and other items before eventually being chased by the large wall of rift. Then, we see a short clip of Zelda within a jungle-like area, heavily reminiscent of Faron Woods from Breath of the Wild, very possibly being that same location, where she is seen utilizing several echoes of beds, tables, crates and a trampoline to jump on top of the tropical palm trees, scaring off a red bird. This seems to definitely suggest that the map will be far larger than what we saw in A Link to the Past, greatly expanding outwards into unseen areas of that game's world. What we see next is Zelda turning the key of a robotic Octorok, which she then uses as a cannon placed on top of her head to take down several moblins around a wooden watchtower. This is yet another aspect borrowed from Breath of the Wild, monster camps, with a monster chest on top that would only open upon the defeat of every enemy of said camp. What follows is a shot of Zelda gliding over a pit of lava within a cave, likely inside of Death Mountain itself, with the use of a crow echo. What's interesting about this crow is that, unlike the ones we saw in a prior shot, this one is yellow. It seems that some enemy echoes will adopt a yellow hue when summoned, which may explain the yellow color of other monsters seen in the trailer, such as the Deku Babas from earlier. This next shot appears to be within a Sheikah house in Kakariko Village. We can infer this due to multiple clues on the scene. First, we have a Sheikah elderly man. We know he is a Sheikah due to both this lamp behind him sharing the same design as those found in Kakariko Village in Breath of the Wild, and this Sheikah hat, identical to the ones used by Sheikah also in Breath of the Wild. On the wall, we see wooden boards with writing on them. This appears to be a stylized form of hentaigana derived from hiragana, although it is quite hard to tell what it might say. I tried to write down the closest hiragana characters to what we can see on the first one, but it does not appear to be any known Japanese word. What we see next is a very quick shot of a ninja Sheikah attacking 3 soldiers at lightning speed, perhaps demonstrating a secret technique to Zelda reminiscent of the techniques used by Monk Master Scotia in Breath of the Wild. If we take a look on the background of the room, we can appreciate a statue of Goddess Hylia. This is the first time a statue of the goddess has ever been seen in a top-down Zelda game. For the first time in Hyrule's history, we have the presence and interaction between 2 distinct Sora factions ever in the series. The green monstrous river Sora and the blue gentle sea Sora. During Oracle of Ages, these 2 Sora tribes existed simultaneously, although we never saw them interact directly. In concept art of Breath of the Wild, there were drawings of both these Sora tribes, which were considered early on to be included in the game, but later were rejected. But now, it seems that this idea of opposite Sora tribes in some form of conflict is being repurposed for this game. These 2 conceptualized Sora tribes have unique crests on their waistcloths, and I definitely see this being the case for these 2 Sora factions in Echoes of Wisdom. I wouldn't be surprised if we had the Sea Sora with the regular Sora crest we have seen them have since Ocarina of Time, and the River Sora having an inverted version of it, much like the Sheikah and the Yiga clan. Next, we see the return of the Deku business crafts, resembling their appearance from Majora's Mask. The location of this shot is south of Death Mountain, south of a windmill that appears to be north of Kakariko Village. This windmill can briefly be seen in this previous shot within the minimap, and later more clearly on the key art of the game, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. Speaking of Deku, in the very next shot, we finally get our first ever look at a top-down Deku tree, which appears to be in the same grove that the Master Sword was found in A Link to the Past. However, the pedestal of the Master Sword appears to be missing. Given the return of the Gerudo, Sheikah, Deku Scraps, and both factions of Sora, and with the likely return of Gorons also within Death Mountain, it is possible that either the Kokiri or Koroks could make an appearance alongside the Deku Tree, as in every appearance of the Deku Tree in the series, the children of the forest have been by his side. In this other shot of an underwater section, while Zelda is being chased by a swirling whirlpool, we get a small glimpse at a blue berry, a jellyfish-like enemy which first made its debut in A Link to the Past, which also seems to indicate that a weaker variant, the red berry, will also appear, as is the case with other creatures we've seen so far. And if we look in the background, we can see a large lobster-like creature swimming away from the whirlpool as well. Will that be a boss, or perhaps a friendly creature? What follows is a shot of Zelda and Tri facing off against a large stone creature that emerges from the ground, which may very possibly be a dungeon boss. The room they are in is identical to the dungeon scene at the start of the trailer where Ganon was found. In fact, the pillars share a strong resemblance to the pattern on the back of Ganon's cape. We then see a quick shot of Zelda holding different echoes, including a sign, a green wind turbine in what appears to be the same desert cavern as in the other shot, a sea urchin in a shoreline as we can see from the waves on the bottom right corner, and a Lizalfos in an ashy volcanic setting likely around the Death Mountain area. Judging by the red coloration of the leaves on the walls matching those of the plants in this tropical forest area, and the presence of Skulltulas, this side-scrolling temple-like structure could be located in an underground structure of Faron Woods, perhaps this being one of the dungeons of the game, such as a forest temple. Similarly, in the next shot, we get what appears to be some sort of water temple area. We can see a chest on the far left corner, strongly suggesting that this, in fact, is a dungeon. Following this, we get a shot of what appears to be a cliffside of Death Mountain, where Zelda uses the Tri-Rod to summon yet another returning enemy, the Peahat, which she uses to glide off the cliffside. On the walls, we can see climbable wall surfaces much like those seen in the Minish Cap. Whether those will be climbable from the start or require an item such as a grip ring from the Minish Cap to be climbable remains to be seen. Next, we encounter two new enemies. First is a rope, a snake-like enemy which once again first appeared in A Link to the Past. The second enemy appears to be a brand new creature to the series, a soul-like white slime creature with a candle-like fuse on top of its head. It uses to light grass and other enemies on fire. And finally, this last shot takes place within the northwestern corner of the Eastern Palace, the same location where Sahasrara was located in A Link to the Past. This time, however, the area is home to a group of moblins, two of which appear to be blue moblins, a stronger variety of moblin, surrounding another platform with a monster chest on top, indicating this is another of the monster bases. What we see also is yet another enemy type returning from a past Zelda game, a Redead, which made its first appearance in Ocarina of Time, undead monsters that possess a blood-curdling scream that paralyzes its victims in fear. Its design was strongly based on the ones from Ocarina of Time, also takes inspiration from those from Wind Waker, primarily its pointy ears with loopy golden earrings. Perhaps, much like the moblins, we may encounter blue variants of the Redeads that could be much closer to the Wind Waker counterparts. This enemy type, unlike the red moblins which cost 2 triangles to summon, instead costs 3 triangles. It can be expected that the blue moblins may cost more than the red variants too, perhaps also 3 like the Redeads. As mentioned earlier, and despite being covered by the Nintendo Switch logo in the actual trailer, we can see on the official key art of the game a windmill that is located south of Death Mountain that belongs to Kakariko Village. It is possible that this iteration of Kakariko Village takes visual elements from both Kakariko Village from past games such as Ocarina of Time and A Link to the Past, as well as Hateno Village from Breath of the Wild, which also had windmills and very similar white walls ready to buildings. And we can also see 2 more enemy types in this key art. First is a regular red Octorok within a pool of water. But then we see a blue, spiky Peahat on the right side of the key art. This is different from the previous Peahat we saw, with this blue one appearing to be a stronger and more dangerous variant than the former red Peahat. We also see a piece of heart atop one of the stone pillars, confirming that, like in Link's Awakening and past Zelda titles, this will once again be used to increase Link's hearts, and perhaps suggesting the return of side quests with heart pieces as rewards. At the very top of the key art, we also see depictions of both an angry Link and Ganon emitting a purple aura. Could it be that both Link and Ganon are not what they seem in this game? Perhaps both of them are echoes themselves, controlled by a greater villain that is hiding in the shadows, yet to be revealed, with Ganon being a subversion of expectations. The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom will release on September 26th of this year, alongside a Nintendo Switch Lite system inspired by the Legend of Zelda series. This game is shaping up to be one of the best top-down Zelda games in the series, and I, for one, am very excited to see what this game has to offer. Are you excited for the Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom? And did I miss anything in this analysis? Let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, please leave a like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to get notified of future uploads. Also, consider following me on Twitter and Instagram to stay in touch. This has been Zelda Lore, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!